Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Santi Shanti Santi. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Vadarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavanto Puna Puna Isharo Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha. Om Santi Shanti Santi. We have reached verse number 562. Pragyan Ghan Ityatma Lakshanam Satya Shukchakam Anudya Aupadhikasyaiva Katayanti Vinashanam. See the translation. The embodiment of consciousness. In these words, the scriptures indicate the true nature of the self. Having established its reality, the scriptures speak of the destruction of apart conditionings only. The dialogue between Guru and disciple is continued. Pragyanam ityatma lakshanam satya suchakam. Here is some universal truth. Like sun is in the sky and it gives light. This is universal truth. Same, it is universal truth that whatever is visible, whatever we know, is not permanent. Either it may remain 1 minute or millions of years, but everything will be going to die. This is the reality. Mortal can be known easily because immortal is unknown. Immortal is unknown yet. We do not have any taste of immortality. So we do not believe any immortal existence. Our intellect cannot accept any existence which is superior than the intellect. Because every other things are lower class from the intellect. Intellect is a higher class. Intellect can prove anything and intellect can disprove anything. So intellect is the supreme authority in this world. So intellect is not ready to accept anything which is superior than intellect. It hurts its ego. And obviously, the self is superior than intellect. That is why intellect is not ready to accept any such existence like consciousness. So we have to give this thought to intellect about the self. Here, logically, no one can prove. Scientifically, it cannot be proved that after death, something remains. Everyone can understand very easily that in death, everything ends. Everything going to end. Very easily it can be understood. But something remains after that. It cannot be proved logically or by scientifically. Here topic going on, Guru was saying to disciple, the body of the realized persons is like dried leaf of a tree. Dried leaf of the tree automatically falls, and where it goes, it is no connection with the tree. Same, the body of the realized persons automatically falls like a dried leaf. It has nothing to do with the self-realized person. So that is why it question was arised. After that, everything finished or something remains. In this context, here is a dialogue from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. The dialogue is between Yakshavalk and Maitreya. And you know very well who were Yakshavalk and Maitreya. They were husband and wife. They were disciple and master. Very rarely such incidents happens. Such higher class spirituality was being discussed between this couple. Very, very rare incidents. Between husband and wife, there are so many jokes. There are so many jokes. But such class of spirituality can be discussed only the people who are in such level. So between Yakshavalk and Maitreya, the dialogue was going on. Yakshavalk was giving message about consciousness. And he said, Maitreya, it is like Pragyan Ghan. Pragyan Ghan. So what is the Pragyan Ghan? And Yakshavalk gave an example. The example was a lump of salt. He said, as a lump of salt, it is without interior, without exterior, entire, and purely saline in taste. There is no any other thing, just salt, like a lump of ice. There is nothing, just water. No interior, no exterior. So Yakshavalk said, it is like lump of a salt, without interior, without exterior, entire and purely saline in taste, Even so, in the self without interior and exterior, the self is pure intelligence alone, pragyan ghan, pure intelligence alone. Pragyan ghan atma lakshana. So this is the definition of the Atman. And it says Atman is real. Anutya upadi kaseva katyanti vinasana. Yajnavalkya said, only bodies take birth and die. Upadhi. Upadhi means body, mind, intellect. But this consciousness is always nityam, eternal. Now next one. Avinasi va are ayam atma iti srutiratmanah braviti tyavinashittam vinatsu vikarishu. See the translation. He says, immortal is the self, Atman, my dear. This passage from the scriptures speaks of the immortal in the midst of things, finite and subject to modification. Yajnavalkya was giving a lecture about Atman. Because when he was giving a talk about the Atman, Maitreya said, just here you have led me into midst of confusion. I do not at all comprehend this. In Gita also, when Lord Sri Krishna was talking about Jnana and Karma, that time Arjuna said, sometimes you are talking about knowledge is better. Sometimes you are talking about action is better. I am getting confused. What are you making to try? Here, Maitreya also said same way, because it is going to happen. We have different knowns, different norms, conceptions, and the master is saying very different way. So there, it will going to happen. There would be questions. There would be doubts. It is going to happen. So Maitreya was asking. He said, it looks you are confusing me. Yajnavalkya said, no, I am not confusing you. He said, certainly I am not saying anything confusing to you. And the message is self is indeed immutable, indestructible, my dear. He said, this is anuchitti dharma. This soul is anuchitta dharma, immortal. Avinasi vare ayam atma smriti atmana. This is the passage from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Braviti avinashitvam. He says, this Atman, the soul is immortal. Anuchitta dharma. And it gets expression from the bodies. Vinatsu vikarshu. The bodies are immortal and with modifications. All bodies are with modification. They are going to modify every time. decaying. They are not permanent. Vinasu vikarshu. So, but in these objects, the consciousness is immortal. Now, next one. पाषाण वृक्ष तृणधान्य कनकराद्यः दग्धा भवन्ति मृदेव यथा तथैव देहेन्द्रिया सुमन आदि समस्त दृश्यम ज्ञानाग्नि दग्धमुपयाति परात्म भाव. See the translation. Just as a stone, tree, straw, grain, husk, etc. are reduced to ice when burnt, so too the whole objective universe, comprising the body, sense, organs, pranas, mind, etc., are reduced to the supreme self when burnt into the fire of knowledge. The principle is every names and forms finally will merge into their causes. I remember here Drigdrishti Vivek. I remember I taught. In Drigdrishti Vivek, there is written Sat Chit Anand. These three are Brahman's existence. Sat Chit Anand. And name and roop, name and forms are the words. We have only 5 things. I repeat it again. We have known 5 things. 5 are Sat, Chit, Anand. These 3 things belong to the Brahman. And another 2 are names and forms. These 2 things belong to the world. If you can understand this reality, it will be very easy to understand what Brahman is and what world is. Shad, Chid, Anand, existence, consciousness, and knowledge. These 3 aspects belong to the Brahman. And names and forms, these 2 aspects belong to the world. Every name and form has its substratum. So every names and forms finally will merge into their cause. Here he says, like stone, tree, straw, grain, husk, etc. Unlimited objects. And each object is very different from the other. Every object is its own entity. Every object has its own uniqueness. You cannot mix them. Stone is stone. It is not tree. Tree is tree. You cannot mix with a grain. Every object has its own uniqueness. They are very separate. But when we burn all objects into fire, when we burn all objects into fire, then what remains? Nothing. After burning, there is just ice. Ice is very similar. having burnt, the tree becomes as. Having burnt, the stone becomes just as. Grain becomes as. Every object, there is no any name, there is no any shape, just there is as. And you cannot identify. This as belongs to the tree. We cannot identify this as belongs to the cloth. We cannot identify this as belongs to such and such. Everything has lost their identity. No name, no form, just as remains. As means earth. So every object is rooted in the earth. Earth is the cause. So finally, every object goes to the earth. Here Shankaracharya says, Asana Vivekchudamani Nikadak Karada Dagda Bhavanti Mradev Yatha Tathayo. Very similar. Every object having burnt, they have no any identity, no any separation, no any quality, nothing, just as. Same. Here, Shankaracharya says, Dehe Indriyas Man Iti Samas Drishyam. All objects, including body, sense organs, and breathing system, mind, intellect, everything. You can say that entire universe, entire phenomenon, whatever is we can see, entire. These all objects are different. They have their own entity. They have their own speciality. Like our eye has one speciality. It can see. I cannot hear. So speciality of the eyes is hearing. Our nose can smell. This is the speciality of nose. It cannot see. So every object, every sense organs, every body has its own speciality, its own character. Sun has its speciality, moon has its own speciality, water has its own speciality, earth has its own character. So everything, every object has its own speciality, its own character. That is why they are different. Their character are mixed. Their character makes them separate. But Jnanagni Dagdam Upati Paramatma Bhavam. The knowledge of the fire. The knowledge of the fire. What is knowledge of the fire? Knowledge of the fire means what? Not this objective knowledge. There may be some person very intelligent, a good engineer, good doctor, good scientist. This knowledge will not work. Which knowledge? Knowledge of the self. The Jnanagni Dagdam Upayat Paratma Bhavam. Jnanagni, the fire of the knowledge, can burn all universe, can burn all entire universe, all phenomenon, all phenomenon will lose its name and form, Paramatma Bhavam, and they are only one Brahman. So it means what? Because the Brahman is the substratum of the universe. Brahman is the cause of our universe. Jnanakini, the knowledge of the self, it is like fire. It burns all names and forms. Just Brahman will remain. Anywhere, having knowledge of the Brahman, anywhere you see, your eyes will give report to you, this is the chair, but the inner process will change the thought and you will understand this is the Brahman. I will report this is the water, but your inner process will filter it and it will say, no, this is the Brahman. So everywhere Brahman is Paramatma Bhavam. There is no name, no face. Just Brahman, Paramatma Bhavam. Now next one. Vilakshanam yathatvantam liyate bhanu tejasi tathaiva shakalam drishyam brahmani praviliyate. See the translation. Just as darkness, which is distinctly different from sunlight, vanishes in the sun's effulgence, so too this entire objective universe vanishes into Brahman. The previous verse is being explained with the example. Example is given here. Vilakshanam yathadvantam liyate bhanu tejasi. Darkness and light, they are just opposite each other. Light is not darkness, and darkness is not light. Shankaracharya wrote somewhere, Tama prakashvat vruddha subhavayo. The light has its own character, its own nature, and darkness has its own nature. And just opposite. But think. When light comes, where does darkness go? When light comes, suppose you are in the cave, in the very deep cave, it is full of darkness. No light. And suddenly, you lit a light. Suddenly, quickly, when light comes, what happens of the darkness? Where it go? Immediately, light comes, and if your light comes and immediately the darkness finished. It goes into light. It merges into light. Shankaracharya says, Vilakshanam yathadvantam liyate bhanu tejasi. The darkness, which is different from the sunlight, it merges into light. When light goes, immediately it appears. Immediately it appears. From where it has come. It was there. So darkness and light has very different character. But one thing you should remember, darkness also requires light. Darkness also requires light, because without light you cannot see darkness also. Light is needed. Without light, darkness cannot be seen. A certain amount of light is needed. Without light, darkness cannot be seen. So Shankaracharya says, Vilakchanam tatha dvantam liyate bhanu tejasi tathaiva sakalam drishyam brahmani praviliyate. This is the dristant example. Now see the principle. He says same. Similarly, sakalam drishyam. Sakalam drishyam, whatever is seen. Whatever is seen. I know. These scenes are very different from the seer. Seer and seen are very different characters. Seen is inert. Seer is conscious. Very opposite. Seen is mortal. Seer is immortal. Very opposite character. In other words, you can say object and subject. Subject is not object and object is not subject. They both are opposite. Tathaiva sakalam drishya. So before realization, there was world, there was universe, there was creation. And one thing has to be understood very clearly. You cannot simultaneously see two things. This is the problem. This problem is almost with every seeker. We want to see seen and seer both together. You can see live. You are seeing a movie on the screen. You see the movie. Enjoy the movie. But when you are watching the movie, you cannot see the screen. The screen is not visible. Simultaneously, you are trying to watch movie and screen also. Is it possible? If you want to watching screen, switch off the movie. Then screen is there. Both cannot be seen together. You see movie or you see the screen. Here, drishyam like movie. Movie is going on. Sun is coming, earth is coming and going. Universe is coming and going, and you are watching. You are watching. Everything is coming and going. It's like movie is going on the screen. In this state, you can watch the movie. You can watch the drishyam scene, but you cannot watch the scene. If you want to see the screen, then switch off the movie. So drishyam is the like movie. It is a movie means movie, and you are watching. Earth is coming and moving. Sun is coming and going. Water is coming and going. Bodies are coming and going. They just moving. And you are unmovable. You are watching. So these all movements, all seen, where is happening? They are happening in some screen. Like movies moving on the screen, same The all entire universe is moving, going and coming. Where? In the Brahman. So Shankaracharya says, Drishyam Brahmani praviliyate. After realization, after self-realization, the entire universe, sun, moon, entire universe will merge into the Brahman. Now, next one. Ghate nashte yatha vyoma, vyomaiva bhavati sputam, tathaiva upadhi vilaye, brahmaiva brahmavit soyam. See the translation. Just as when a pot is broken, the pot space becomes the limitless space. So too, when the conditionings are destroyed, the knower of Brahman becomes Brahman itself. See, in Vedanta, very famous word is Ghatakas. Ghatakas, Patakas, Mathakas. Akas means the space. Ghata means ghat. Ghat means a pot. Ghatakas means the space which is limited by a pot. It is also an example. Ghate naste tatha vyoma. Ghatakas means the space which is limited by a pot. This pot is created by us. The space had been before the pot, when there was no pot. The sky was. Before that particular pot, sky was there. Space was there. And in this space, we have created a pot. In this pot, there is space. Now think, the which space is inside the pot, it was before pot or not? When pot was created, sky was before the pot. After some time, the pot can be broken. It is going to happen. Every object will finish. So after broken this pot, what will happen to this particular space which is limited in the pot? You will say nothing will going to happen. Before pot, there was sky. After pot, there is sky. Nothing is going to happen to the sky. Sky will remain the same without any trace. In this creation, unlimited creation had happened. No one knows. And this process is going on. Creation is going on. Creation is going on. And in the sky, there is no any stress, no any mark, no any stress in the sky. Sky is unattached. It cannot be contaminated by any objects. Ghate nashte tatha vyoma, vyomaiva bhavati sputam. Shankaracharya says, vyom means the space. It was space, it is space. Tathaiva upadhi vilaye brahmaiva brahmavit soyam. Same. when this upadhi, here ghat means the body, here part means the body. Our body is our condition. Our body is our limitation. Self is everywhere. But because of this body, duality appears. I am here, I am not there. So this body makes us conditioned. And what death does, see the beauty of the death. Beauty of the death. Death is your very, very, very good friend. Suppose someone will live 2,000 years, 5,000 years, he is not going to die. And a full body is painful. Pain is in the knee, pain in the heart, head, everywhere in the body, pain is, body is full of the pain. And still, body is there. Painful body. In this state, everyone will want to die. In our scriptures, there are incidents about Aswathama. Aswathama, the son of Dronacharya, he did a very big commit, a sin with the Pandavas, and Lord Sri Krishna cursed him. He kept a wound his head, and pus is always there. Pus is every time there. And Krishna says, you have to live. This is curse for you. You want to death. You want to die, but death will not come to you. This is my curse to you. You have committed a very big sin. That was not supposed to do by you. So this is my curse. For with this wound, with full of pus, pain, everyone will hate you. You cannot meet anybody. But my curse is for you, you live. And this becomes curse for him. It is state gave reported, he is still living, but he cannot meet anyone. He do not want to meet anyone. So death is our friend. When body becomes so old, in Gita, Lord Sri Krishna says, Vasansi Jiranani, very old. Then you want to change it. So death comes and changes it. And for realized person, death comes. Upadhi Vilay Brahmaiva Brahma Vitswayam. The realized person becomes Brahman. It becomes a Brahman. It was Brahman, body was conditioning, and the condition has broken. It becomes a Brahman. Now next one. Chire Chiram Tatha Chiptam Tailam Tale Jalam Jale Sanyuktam Ekatam Yati Tatha Atmanya Atma Bin Muni. See the translation. Just as milk poured into milk, oil into oil, and water into water, each become united and one, so too one who has realized the self becomes one with the self. See, He's giving one more example. In Kathopanishad, the Yamaraj was teaching to Nachiketa, Brahma Vidya. And Yamaraj said, Atma Bhavati Gautama. He says, as pure water, poured into pure water, becomes one with, so also, O Gautam, does the self of the sage who knows becomes self. Yamaraj said, mix water into water. What will happen? Nothing. Water becomes water. If with water you mix something else, then contamination will happen. If you water mix with the mud, water becomes contaminated. Anything else. But purity of the waters will finish. Purity of the water is only water is there. The quantity is not matter. How much quantity it may be. And same method, Mandukya Upanishad. Mundaka Upanishad says, he's giving also an example like, as the flowing rivers having relinquished their names and forms, merge into the ocean. So the wise being free from name and form, attaining the infulgent Supreme Brahma. There are so many rivers. Their originations are different. Some are from the Himalayas, some are from other mountains. Their names are different. And finally, their destination is ocean. In ocean, nothing remains. No Ganga, no other water, no other, just there is water. Same. Atmavind Muni. The knower of the Brahman becomes the Brahman. Brahmavid Brahmaiva Bhavati. The knower of the Brahman becomes Brahman. How is it possible? By knowing only, how can you become something? Is it possible? Just by knowing. So by knowing, you cannot change. Brahmavid Brahmai Bhavati, you was Brahman. You were not aware. Now you have become aware. That is why Brahmavid Muni. Now next one. Evam videha kaivalyam sanamatratvam akhanditam Brahma bhavam prapadyesha yatir na vartate punaha. See the translation. It does not suffer transmigration, having experienced seclusion as the result of being disembodied, being ever identified with the one reality, Brahman. Now, topic has gone one step ahead. Still, Guru was talking about Sadeha Mukti, liberation with the body. Now he is talking about the liberation after body. Videha, this embodiment. He is talking about this embodiment. Before body was there, at least there were some conditions. At least there were hunger, there were thirst, and so many other things were working with the body. You were realized. But according to destiny, body will get so many things. You are realized, but body has to face some bodily incidents. So sometimes it appears that you are limited. You are limited. You are plus body. Self is conditioned. Yet self is not pure. Here he is saying, Evam videha kaivalyam sanamatratvam akhanditam. After that, and body dies, now it becomes pure consciousness, sanamatram. Now it becomes pure consciousness, no attachment, no body. As we studied, there are three types of body. Gross body. The age of the gross body is very less. Then comes subtle body. The age of the subtle body is very, very long. Then comes causal body. Gross body is for very little time. And another gross body will get. After one body finished, another fresh we take. Because causal body is there, subtle body is there. So, having died, we do not die. Death comes, but nothing dies. Shankaracharya says, Kaivalyam Sanamatram. Gorakhnath was a great yogi. Once he addressed his disciples, he said, Yogi maro marana hai meetha. He was addressing to his disciples. He was saying, oh yogi, yogi means his disciple. He was giving address. He said, oh yogi, come and die. Come and die. The death is very sweet. Like Gorakhnath has died. He was giving talk. Here, Videha Kaivalyam Sanamatratvam Akhanditam Brahma Bhavam Prapaddesha Yati Na Vartate. Such person will not come back to the world. Now, next one. Sadatmaikatva Vijnana Dagda Vidyad Varmana Amusya Brahma Bhutatva Brahmana Kurt Udbhava. See the realized translation. By realizing the oneness of the individual self and Brahman, these bodies consisting of ignorance, etc., are burnt and becomes Brahman itself. How can Brahman ever have rebirth? The thought is continue. Sad e atma ekatva vigyan. The only thing we have to understood that the unity of the self and Brahman. If we know Brahman separately, Brahman is somewhere in the heaven, I am in the body, it will not work. You know about the Brahman, you know about yourself. Nothing is happening. You have to know unity. Sada ekatva atma vijnana. This vijnan, this knowledge becomes fire. And this fire will burn all ignorance. Brahma bhutatvat brahmana kuta udbhava. And when upadhi, conditioning is burnt, you are the Brahman. You are the pure Brahman. And Brahman cannot take birth. Brahman cannot take body. Brahman cannot be limited. Now, next one. Maya kritau bhavavan bandha mokshau nasata swatmani vastuta yatha rajjau niskriyayam sarpa vas nirgamau. See the translation. Maya, conjured up bondage and liberation, do not really exist in the reality one's self, just as the appearance of and disappearance of the snake are not in the rope, which undergoes no changes. Now, Vedanta has its own highest thought process. In very beginning, we teach a student, you have desire for liberation. For liberation. For liberation, you do this, you do that. But in this state, Guru says, there is no liberation because there is no bondage. For liberation, there must be bondage, but pure consciousness cannot be in bond. So, liberation and bondage, both are just effect of ignorance. They have no existence. And he's giving an example, like he says, in a rope, there is snake. In Vedanta, this is a very famous example, snake in the rope. Rope is without any action. In this, without any action rope, we can imagine their snake. So disappearance of the snake cannot contaminate the rope. Just its appearance and the appearance cannot make any activity in the rope. Same, the bondage, the liberation cannot happen into the Brahman. Now, last one. Avrite sada sattvabhyam bhaktavye bandha mokshane navritir brahmana kachit anya bhava dhanavritam yadva advaitahani syat twetam no sahate sruti. See the translation. When there is presence of or absence of willing, bondage and liberation can be spoken of. There can be no willing of Brahman as it is obvious, there being no second thing beside it. If there is, it will contradict the non-duality of Brahman. The scriptures will never allow duality. Same thought is going on. Liberation and bondage both does not exist. In ignorance, in Maya, there are two powers. Maya has two powers. One is veiling power, another is projecting power. Veiling power means it covers. It covers. What covers? Maya covers the Brahman? Says no. Avrite sada sattvabhyam bhaktavye bandha mokshane. When Brahman is covered, it is the bondage. You forget yourself is the bondage. Asattvabhyam, when there is no cover, you are liberated. The only thing is covering and discovering. The question is, where is covered? Who is covered? Brahman? Shankaracharya says, no, Brahman cannot be covered. Not Brahmana. Brahman cannot be covered. If Brahman was covered, there had been so many realized persons, they discovered the Brahman. So everybody would have been liberated because Brahman was discovered. So this cover is not upon the Brahman. This cover covers our vision. And he says, if there was any cover, any other existence apart from the Brahman like cover, then non-duality of the Brahman will be not possible. There would be two facts, Brahman and cover. And scriptures does not allow this. The scriptures are saying Brahman is one without second. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Sankaracharyam Keshavam Vadarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Puna Punah Isharo Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavada Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.